Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to give another 1-2 minutes just so that everybody can stream in. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining today. We'll be starting soon. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hui Ying. I'm from the Design Singapore Council, and I will be your host for today. Thank you for joining us today at the launch of the Business Value of Design program, organized by the Design Singapore Council, the National Agency for Design in Singapore, in partnership with leading business strategy and design firm, McKinsey Design. Today, we'll start with some welcome remarks from Mr. Mark Wee from the Design Singapore Council. Following this, we will hear from McKinsey on the business value of design research and how they've shown that design can be a key factor in driving commercial success. This will be followed by an introduction to the Business Value of Design program, which will help you take action to deepen design behaviors within your organization and drive better business outcomes. During this webinar, there will be 2 Zoom polls. We encourage you to participate in these and share your thoughts with us. We will then end the webinar with a Q&A session. Joining us in the Q&A session will be Mr. Jack Seo from Design Singapore and Mr. Adrian Debaye from Salad Stop. Before we proceed, I would like to highlight a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, please note that this session will be recorded. During this webinar, your audio will also be muted. However, we welcome questions throughout the session. Please keep your questions coming in through the Zoom Q&A function. When posting a question, please identify yourself and indicate if you'd like a specific panelist to address your question. If you are facing technical issues, please feel free to reach out to us through the Zoom chat function. Here's a quick recap of where the various Zoom functions can be found. This is on the bottom bar of your window. Now that everyone has familiarized themselves, let's start off this afternoon's program with some opening remarks by Mr. Mark Wee, Executive Director of the Design Singapore Council. Mark is a design thinking pioneer in Singapore who has designed award-winning innovative experiences for the public and private sectors. As a design veteran with wide industry connections, Mark has brought the work of the Council to the attention of global design leaders. Please welcome Mr. Mark Wee. Hi, Mark. I think you're muted at the moment.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's working fine.
Great. Thanks, Hui Ying, and thanks everyone for taking the time to join us here today. This webinar actually marks the launch of our new Business Value of Design program, or BVoD in short. We are really excited to share more about this partnership with McKinsey Design and how it may benefit you and your company. But before we jump into that, I'd like to share a little bit more about who we are and why we do what we do. Design Singapore Council was established in 2003, and since the Economic Review Committee identified design as a key differentiating competency for businesses. We are proud to be the national agency in Singapore championing the growth of the design sector here. And our vision is to help Singapore become an innovation-driven economy and a lovable city by design, by 2025. You may be wondering, what is design actually and how can businesses benefit from it? Simply put, design is about user centricity. It's about understanding a user's needs and problems and then being able to create and deliver effective solutions to address them. And it is only by combining user desirability, technical feasibility, and business viability that you can achieve innovation for your business. And that's what we believe. At the Council, we believe that design is a key enabler to helping companies uncover new opportunities by placing customers first and driving profitable and desirable human-centered innovation. And this is why we have actually been actively working to support companies to embed design within their business practices. And as part of our recently launched Design for Business initiative, we work with several companies to leverage design to address their business challenges. For example, Plo, a provider of premium bidding to the hospitality industry, was looking to create a direct-to-consumer strategy that offers a more premium experience in Asia, while PhotoHub, a one-stop professional imaging solutions provider, was keen to develop a new experience offering alongside their product sales. We have supported them to work with design consultancies to frame their problems clearly from a human user's perspective and identify opportunities and solutions they can implement to drive business growth. And we are adding to our suite of Design for Business initiatives with the BVoD program. For the first time ever, through their extensive research, McKinsey was able to show that great design is strongly correlated with great business performance. And their data-driven approach to helping companies uncovering business opportunities through design, and coupled with McKinsey's strengths in business consulting, makes McKinsey Design our natural partner of choice for this program. Essentially, through the BVoD program, we want to help Singapore companies navigate the current challenging economic climate and realize new business opportunities through a data-backed but human-centered approach. Our sincere hope at this is that this program will not only help you understand your design capabilities today, but also enable you to imagine or reimagine your aspirations for tomorrow and identify actionable next steps to reach these goals. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this webinar and join us really on this new program.
All right, thank you, Mark. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Jeff Galvin, Senior Partner and Leader of McKinsey Design in Asia, to share about McKinsey Design's groundbreaking research into the business value of design and the impact that it can deliver for businesses. Based in McKinsey's Tokyo office, Jeff also leads McKinsey's fintech efforts in the region and brings vast experience working with startups, incumbents, private equity, and venture capital investors in areas such as investment strategy and execution, as well as design, digital, and analytics. Jeff, please.
Thank you very much. For those of you who mostly know McKinsey as a consulting firm, I just want to start by highlighting we're also by any measure a leading design firm globally. You know, as the slide here points out, you know, over the last several years, we've both hired a number of world-class designers and also acquired leading design firms such as Lunar, you know, Veraday, and others around the world, and are really working across leading organizations on design thinking and overall design strategy. So we like to say, you know, there's the McKinsey that everybody knows or used to know, and there's the new McKinsey we're also building that's doing many exciting things in the area of design. And maybe as we kick off the discussion today, we can just start with a quick poll on the topic of design. How well do you understand your customers? Because as you will all know about design thinking, it's all fundamentally about understanding your customers. And I'll be curious to see where the results come out. So top, you know, 80 to 100%, do you understand your customers extremely well, pretty well? We could do better. Would love to hear the results. I'll just wait to see the answer. Pretty well. That's not bad. It's pretty consistent also with what we've seen. We've run this poll in many other organizations. Interestingly, most companies feel they know their customers pretty well, and sometimes on a good day, extremely well. The interesting thing is when we run the exact same survey with the customers themselves, they almost always tend to come out with the 20 to 40% we need to do better or even worse. And I think leading organizations, if we can turn to the next slide, are starting to realize that the only way they're going to address this gap between their self-perception and what customers really think is by implementing better design or thinking throughout the organization. So you can read for yourselves some of the examples here from Pepsi and Intuit, Nike, and Dell about how those leading organizations are really trying to take, design thinking to the next level to make sure they can understand their customers and create great products and services. And in fact, that the urgency of understanding customers and using design is even more important in today's COVID environment. I think many organizations, if not most, have been caught a little flat-footed, obviously, by the pandemic. And as customers have had to change their own ways of interacting with companies, of living, frankly, companies have also had to respond, nimbly to work with them. So this urgency of using design thinking has become even more important during this pandemic. McKinsey's put together a McKinsey Design Index. We've also done a lot of other research to see if design is just, I'll say, an interesting way of engaging with customers, or if it also impacts the bottom line. And one thing we've found throughout our research, including in this rigorous design index, is that actually, good design is good for the bottom line. Top quartile design firms, according to our research, really do outperform their peers across many, top and bottom line metrics. And these results are true across sectors, business functions, enterprise types, etc. So there really is some rigor to our belief that, better design means better business. And to be clear, design isn't simply, it's a bit like I do a lot of work in the broadly defined digital space. It isn't just a slogan. It's not just a feeling about, drawing. It's not a feeling. It's not setting up a design department using catchphrases or launching a single new product. It really is, like those of you who've done an agile transformation or other things, diffusing design thinking throughout the organization and really working in fundamentally new ways that are more customer-centric. And as I said, we've launched a design index to help organizations better understand where they stand today relative to peers. Some of my colleagues and others will talk about this a little bit more later on, but I just want to highlight this for you here as I wrap up.
Great design leads to great business performance, and we have the numbers to show it. Regardless of your company's goal, your business is ultimately centered around your customers and users. And this is what design is all about. User centricity in your business strategy, processes, and products and services. At DesignSingapore Council, we believe that design is key to helping uncover new business opportunities and drive profitable and desirable human-centered innovation. And design is not an abstract concept. For the first time, McKinsey Design has successfully quantified business improvements from design. And that's why we have partnered them on the Business Value of Design program.
An extensive 5-year study by McKinsey Design found that high-performing companies in design achieved higher revenue and total returns to shareholders by 32% and 56% respectively compared to their peers. Built on McKinsey Design's research, the Business Value of Design program helps your company understand your design capabilities today, reimagine your aspirations for tomorrow, and identify actionable next steps forward.
The BVoD program is structured into 2 phases. In the first phase, assess and reflect, your company will assess its current design performance and learn about the key design behaviors most strongly correlated with improved business performance. In the next Aspire and Act phase, you will reimagine the possibilities for an upcoming business plan, and using insights gathered from your company's assessment, develop an action plan to drive better performance.
Design is not an intangible concept. It is a key business enabler that looks into every organization's ability to harness data and analytics about their business, how they shape cross-functional talents, helps them focus on delivering holistic user experience, and the need for continuous iteration as they bring new products and services to market.
We got introduced to McKinsey, or this program, by Design Singapore. And then McKinsey walked us through the MDI framework that they use. And that really sort of helped us benchmark ourselves compared to other peers in the industry. The design, I think, will be a huge enabler to our growth. Design needs to be fundamental to any organization. And I think that thinking process, that mindset that you have through that growth trajectory that you're about to embark on, I think especially for SMEs, since we are small and we need to be quite nimble, I think it's important to align everyone to make sure that we can scale up, that we can grow internationally and continue with that growth mindset and really having the design-centric approach to any kind of future projects that we embark on.
Today, I've learned that as a company, we need to open our mindset to not just the daily task that's given, but also in terms of how we can move forward together, and also think about the customer's element first and how we design and integrate together as a whole.
I think one of the main benefits for the MDI is to put that design thinking to the forefront of our activities. So whereas it was something that was sort of always on our minds, this sort of pushes it in a structural way.
I think one of the things that we've learned to stay agile is to develop a common platform, lingo or model that we can use with the team in order to track consumer feedback in a continuous manner.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing with us about McKinsey Design and the research on the business value of design. I hope all of you enjoyed the video. It showed us a little bit into what the program experience is like and what you can get out of the McKinsey Design Index. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Yan-Yi Lin, Senior Partner and Co-Leader of McKinsey & Company's Social, Healthcare and Public Sector Practice in Asia, to share about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on businesses and the role that design can play in the recovery. Formerly the managing partner of McKinsey's Singapore office, Yan-Yi brings deep experience in helping government entities and companies design and implement major transformation and economic development programs. Let's welcome Yan-Yi.
Thank you very much, Hui Ying. Let me start first by perhaps putting the elephant in the room that we've all lived with over 2020, which is COVID-19, right? As we all know, this has really created an incredible double imperative for our times. It, at the heart, is very much a concern for lives as we work through this virus, but it has also disproportionately affected many of our livelihoods, right? And the chart here just shows it. And I know that many of us are still working from home, staying safe and hoping that the good progress we've made as a nation continues, particularly as vaccines become available. If I could go to the next slide, please. And similar to Jeff, I'd like to just get a quick poll of how has your business changed as a result of COVID-19? Has it been fundamental? Has there been much change, some change, little change, or no change? If we can just put the poll up quickly, please, and I'd just love to get a pulse check. We'll give everyone sort of 30, 40 seconds just to respond to this. We'll just give it a little bit of time, and then the poll results should come up shortly. Very interesting. If we compare this, and just so in case people can't see it on the screen, the majority of you are saying much change. There's nearly 20% of you saying quite fundamental change. And some of you, very fortunately, only a little bit of change. I would say these results mirror, and in some cases are perhaps a little bit worse than the rest of the world and what we're seeing with our clients globally, which is not a surprise because Singapore in particular, as a small country, is particularly exposed to the global impact. We are part of a globalized world, and as a result of that, as Tom Friedman would say, when someone sneezes in another country, we catch a cold along with many others in the region. If you could go to the next slide, please. As we all think about sort of the post-COVID world, we're encouraging leaders to really think across 5 horizons. Many of you will already, earlier this year, have had to deal with the resolve and resilience phases, where it's about shoring up the operations of our individual companies. I'm hoping that many of you are in the return phase and hopefully well into the return phase to get business back to normal. I know this varies tremendously depending on what sector you're in. But as we look into 2021, we hope that companies will have the opportunity to move into what we call the reimagine and the reform phase. And it is in this reimagine phase that we do believe that design can be incredibly valuable. It is at this time, we believe, an opportunity to really reflect on the changing world of customer expectations, to deal with the rise of accelerated digitalization, and really translate some of that into what does that mean for new customer needs? What does that mean for new products and services? And the way for us as individual companies to deliver what we do. And so we do think that it's a particularly opportune time that the BVoD program is being launched. We hope that it can be very much part of your reimagine plan as we go into 2021. And maybe with that, let me turn it to Matt to talk a little bit more about what exactly is the BVoD.
Thank you, Jenny, for that view into the challenges that business leaders must address in today's environment, and of course, the role that design can play. Next, I would like to invite Matt, like Jenny said. So Matt is an expert associate partner at McKinsey Design, and he will share a little bit about the Business Value of Design program. Let's welcome Matt.
Great, thanks Hui-Yin, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for your time this afternoon. So we've had an introduction to the Business Value of Design. We've put it into a Singapore context, and we've shown a video of what it feels like to participate in the program. And what I'd like to do over the next 5 minutes or so is just make sure that you understand the elements of the program. So I only have 5 pages to walk through, but the intent is to describe the process. Before I describe the process, I wanted to set up how this program came about. So since the Business Value of Design study was published several years ago, McKinsey has been helping companies all over the world to use the McKinsey Design Index to help understand their design maturity, and then to use that to provide initiatives on what best practice looks like. And so we've been doing this for hundreds of companies. And the wonderful opportunity with Singapore government, Design Singapore, is to scale this program across the country. So it's the first of its kind, and it's very exciting. And what we've needed to do is to reassemble the elements of the program such that we can use it across multiple companies at the same time. And we have this field and forum approach. And so the forum part is a bit like a classroom where you learn things. and you come back together to reflect on what you've done. And the field part is where you go away and do homework. And so we've struck this great balance of thinking about the needs of Singapore companies and how to do this at scale. And we've come up with the program. So this is really designed from the ground up. So as Kelly mentioned during the video, there are two parts to the program. So you begin with assess and reflect. And so to begin with, you do the McKinsey Design Index self-assessment, and then you will come along to the Business Value of Design Forum to unpack your results. Like Jeff showed in his slides, he showed an iPad essentially filling out a report, and then a fairly detailed report of design actions. So this is the kind of thing that we would go to in the business value of design. The next part is to take those learnings from the report and put them to work. So we have aspire and act. So we have our aspiration exercise, which is the core of the program that we'll go into later. And then we regroup after you've done that to the next steps forum. So these are the pieces. What I'm not going to go into right now is the timing. So Huiying will describe that to you later on. But what I'm going to do is just drop into each of the 1, 2, 3, 4 and just give you a feel for what those are like. So yeah, step number 1, to sign up and take the MDI. This is the easiest step. So what you need to do is you need to go to the BVoD portal, and then you need to, that will allow you to sign up to the program, and then you'll input some information, and you will take you through to the MDI website where you will take the self-assessment. So this takes approximately 45 minutes to do. It's approximately 166 questions, and we would encourage more than one of you at your company to take this. So ideally, you'll have a minimum of 4 or 5 folks from your company will do this. And each of you, when you do this, you will automatically receive a short MDI report, which is going to tell you how, from your opinion, your company aligns with all of the other companies in our database. Right. So this answer will be, it's quite minimal. It just gives you a percentile. You're either fitting within the first, second, third, or fourth quartile, plus how that would correlate to your business performance. But really what we would like you to do is to come along to the BVoD forum, where you will receive the full MDI report, as was illustrated in Jeff's slides earlier above. So that's the first step, and it's the easiest step. Step number 2 is the BVoD forum. And it's very likely that this will be a virtual workshop, given our current state. But for 4 hours, you will be understanding a lot more about the MDI and the origins and where it holds true, and what best practice really looks like from some of our experts that we'll call in. We'll then be unpacking your full MDI report for your company. Right, so obviously this is something that you'll receive privately, but you'll review these as a group, and we'll be able to explore, you know, what does it mean for your scores looked at across our 4 themes and our 12 sub-themes. So often we will find there may be some close alignment across some of the scores. Sometimes there may be a disparate view of how your company is performing, and sometimes you'll be clearly underperforming in some areas. So this is a really rich learning experience to see how your company is performing in these themes. And then we're going to teach you about the aspiration exercise, which is the next step, and how to do it. So essentially, this is the jump-off point. So that's steps 1 and 2. And then you will decide to join in to Aspire and Act. So this is where you've done the MDI, you've had a really positive experience, you've learned a lot about your company from your MDI report, and you'd like to do the aspiration exercise. And for this, you'll need a commitment from your company for at least 2 or 3 people to more or less full-time work on this. So this aspiration exercise is the first step of your journey to a transformation that is infused with the knowledge of your MDI report. And I won't go too much into the detail now, but what we've found is that the best success that companies have when they embark on these transformations is that they pick the next product or service which is really meaningful to them and really get behind that new product or service and give it as much best practice design oxygen as possible. So step number 1 is to identify what is that new product or service that you're working on that keeps you awake at night and you realize is the unlock to either recover out of your COVID situation or to take advantage of it. And then step number 2 is where we further unpack your MDI score and we focus on the areas where there is some weaknesses, shall we say, and we uncover what's behind those weaknesses, and we use that as a kickoff point to create better practices. We review these steps 1 and 2 in clinic number 1, which is where we'll come together and our McKinsey Design experts will give you one-on-one feedback around exercises number 1 and 2. And then you'll learn how to do exercises 3 and 4, and you'll go away and work on these. So in exercise 3, we figure out some initiatives for you to focus on that are in the context of your new products and services. And then we'll be updating your business plan with this information to create a bolder ambition and aspiration. Being cautious, in our next clinic, we'll be doing a pre-mortem on why this isn't going to go to plan. And this is really insightful for how to get to success. And then we end the aspiration exercise with a celebration of your aspiration by you creating a front page of a Fortune magazine in the future saying what you've achieved. So it's a short 2-week exercise, but we find it's very effective in really focusing on the new product or service that is really important to you and infusing into it all of the lessons that we've learned and best actions from MDI. The final piece is the Next Steps Forum, which is the Now What forum. And what we do is we reflect on your learnings. We share between the participating companies. And what we do is we leave you with a very prescriptive list of design actions for areas where there is the sort of greatest weakness to build into your next step forward, plus some options about which way is right for you to proceed from here. So essentially, we don't leave you hanging. We give you options on how to take it forward. So this is the bones of the BVoD program. I'd like now to hand back to Hui Ying to talk about some of the mechanics of signing up.
All right, thanks, Matt, for walking us through the program. Let me go through how you can join us on this program before we start with the Q&A. Yep. So as Matt has shared earlier, if you can go to the next slide, please. Yep. So as Matt has shared earlier, the business value of design, there are 2 phases to it. So first, in the assess and reflect phase, you can benchmark your company's design performance through the online MDI assessment, and then get a more detailed understanding of the key design behaviors that correlate to improved financial performance. Now, this phase is free for companies to join because Design Singapore will be funding this in full for participating companies. Next is the second Aspire and Act phase. This is where you'll work with guidance from McKinsey to develop an action plan to improve, and this part will also be co-funded by Design Singapore. So this phase will be available to selected companies at an exclusive rate of $2,500 per company before GST. So to get started on the program, the online application to join the program opens today with the launch of the program. So keep in mind that this program is applicable to all companies, regardless of the industry that you're in or the company or your company's size. So within the online application form, you will be asked to nominate 1 to 5 senior leaders of your company to take the online MDI assessment. This is really so that you can get a really good view of how your company works in terms of design performance and how you've adopted design actions and design behaviors. So there is a 5-week window between now till 31st December, where you can complete the online assessment at your own time. So this assessment is expected to take about 45 minutes, and upon completion, you immediately receive an overall MDI score. Subsequently, selected companies will be invited to join us at the Business Value of Design Forum. This will be on 11 January 2021, and you will get a breakdown into your MDI score so that you can understand in more detail how your company is doing in terms of design actions. And selected companies will also be invited to join us for the Aspire and Act phase. So this will be in late January to early February 2021. Yep, so we hope that has been useful for you. And now let us move on to Q&A. So for the Q&A, we would like to invite Mr. Jack Seo, Deputy Executive Director at the Design Singapore Council, to join us, along with Matt. Yes, hi, Matt. Yeah, Matt from McKinsey. And Jeff and DY also from McKinsey. Yeah, let's just take a minute for everyone to switch on their videos. Let's see. Hi, Jeff. Are you? Okay. All right. Great. Now we've got some really interesting questions in the Q&A, but let me just start with a simple one. So we all know that COVID is impacting businesses right now. And I suppose this question, which let's start with Jack's. Since businesses is impacting, are really feeling the impact of COVID right now, why is this a good time for them to really start to embark on this kind of design journey when this can be something that's quite new for them and they're committing resources into really making sure that the business can survive at the moment? Jax, if you have any thought on this?
Many businesses is being disrupted, and I think the COVID situation currently has kind of accelerated that. So even though a lot of businesses are kind of looking at how to survive this period, it is also a good time to take a step back actually and look at some of the key business drivers that could help the business pivot, help them change, or to help them adapt to the new normal. And I think design, I think as everybody kind of has already spoken about it, offers a kind of user-centered approach that could help company better understand users and customer needs and challenges. And with those insights, they could bring about change and reimagine the business. Of course, we understand during this period, I think time and resources is awfully precious to many businesses, which is why this program is designed to be contained within a concise 2 to 3 weeks to give you quick insights and give you an indication of what the action that you can take to start that reimagination journey and to start your design journey. Yep.
Would any of the rest of the panelists have any view into this? Hi, Divine. I think you're muted.
Maybe I can just add to what Jax was saying, right? I think there are, and I think we should acknowledge, there will be some companies for whom survival and resilience is still the primary, right? And I think we must acknowledge that. I would say, however, at least from our experience, 80% or so have, gotten at least the biggest crux of COVID behind them. And we're seeing at least the ones who are able to devote, as Jax was saying, even just a little bit of time to kind of lift their heads above the day-to-day and really look forward are benefiting disproportionately, right? You know, people always say never let a good crisis go to waste, and I think that applies here as well, right? And we are seeing that the ones who are able to will benefit in the long term, and thus we are encouraging companies, as Jax was saying, for even a short period of time, a little bit of resources to at least give you a little bit of perspective to move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Levi. Yeah, so I think we agree that starting small is something that we should all try out, and especially for some of the larger transformation journeys, just taking baby steps and really creating evidence to convince people along the way. So we have an interesting question from someone on Q&A. Let me just pull this up. This is from Patrick, so quite related to our earlier question. How would you convince an organization that design is crucial to change and improvement if they have no inkling of what design can do, or if design to them is about aesthetics? Perhaps if Jeff can give us a response to this.
Sure. Well, not to make this sound like a plug, but this is one of the reasons that we did the McKinsey Design Index work, is to try for some of the, I'll say, skeptical people out there, to try to show them through facts, through literally hundreds of responses, that there is a strong correlation between doing well on design metrics and actually performing better as a business. Because there's definitely, we understand there's a lot of skeptics out there who do view design as, call it drawing, right? They think of graphical design, they think, oh, it's some cartoonist or something, to be cynical. But we've definitely been able to show that really there is real bottom line impact throughout the organization. I think that's the simplest way we have found to demonstrate the business value of design to some of those skeptics.
Yeah, so I think this is something that we agree with as well, that design goes beyond aesthetics, right? And it's really about strategic thinking and of course how your organization behaves in terms of being iterative, being customer focused. We have another question here that is somewhat related. So this is from an anonymous attendee, but generally the question is, how would you explain design thinking is different than business strategic consulting? What are some of the features of design thinking for business planning, for example?
Well, I think just to jump in again, obviously design thinking can very much be a part of consulting. I mean, consulting at some level is providing advice and support to clients. But at least what I think about, and it is a mindset, and it's just a fundamentally new way of doing things, but just being extremely customer back in the way you think about things. So starting always with the lens of, how can I better understand my customers? What do they want? And how, from that first principle way of thinking, can you build products and services to support them? And can you design your whole organization around supporting your customers? I was previously at Google as well, and that was very much the mindset they took. They wouldn't call it design thinking, or they didn't call it design thinking, but it was very much at the heart of their way of approaching. And I think when you look at many leading organizations, even if they don't explicitly refer to these things as design thinking, this notion of being just laser focused on what customers want is what it's all about.
Perhaps Matt or Jax, if you have anything to add on to that.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and I would concur with Jeff that there's something about going back to first principles always and thinking about the customer or the user, if it's within an organization, and thinking about what do they need. And what we've noticed is that if you build up an evidence of customer or user need, it's extremely compelling in a business environment. Like, it is the proof to solve and continue to solve for customers. So, and I wouldn't say that strategic thinking and design thinking can't work together, but it's certainly very compelling, and it is driving decisions in top performing companies now.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for sharing about that. Similarly, we've also received some questions about, so the MDI actually measures design performance across companies. And we've also learned that this is a piece of research that McKinsey Design has done that correlates basically these design actions with financial performance. So we're also curious, is this also applicable to companies which might be a bit smaller? So not the size of Google, for example. Matt, if you have some views on that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been talking, as you can imagine, a lot about this as we've built the business value design program with DSG. And, you know, as mentioned, the study was done using the financial and organizational, operational data of large organizations, so 300 publicly listed companies. And then, of course, you know, we're curious what happens when you go outside that sort of scale. Does it no longer apply? And I think as we've been helping companies over the last 3 years now with this, we're not finding any evidence to suggest that these best practice activities don't still hold true. So we haven't found anything yet. I mean, I think as one example, you saw in the video, Salad Stop is an SME in Singapore, and you know they're seeing benefit in their MDI reports that are very useful to them. So it's not a big cohort of example for you, but it's one very strong example of where the MDI process has been useful for a smaller company.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so of course, I think the behaviors that the MDI highlights are really applicable to all companies, whether they're large or they're small, and across all industries. So maybe another related question to this. This dives a little bit into perhaps some of the methodology around the McKinsey Design Index. So there is a previous study this question is from Marissa. Yeah. So there's prior research from the Design Management Institute, which talks about the value of larger companies, showing a return of 211% over the S&P 500. But most of these companies are multinationals. Could you share a little bit about how the McKinsey Design Index methodology is a little bit different? And are there any differences in the types of organizations that you looked at?
Jeff, I can answer this one partially. So the McKinsey Business Value of Design study is unique in it's the first time we've been given the opportunity to go inside companies, to not just see their how they behave, but also their financial data at the same time. And this is, revealing a much stronger correlation, much stronger evidence why certain companies, perform better that happen to be very heavily invested in design action. So I think the difference is that the McKinsey study is the first of its kind to go inside rather than outside in.
All right, thank you, Matt, for sharing a little bit into that methodology. And of course, this view of outside in versus inside out, that's also quite interesting. It seems like this is really a look into basically how the organization is doing internally and an assessment into that. And of course, through the MDI survey, people can get a quick, almost quantitative view into how they're doing in terms of design performance from the inside out.
Yeah, maybe just a comment to follow up. Probably one of the biggest takeaways that companies have when they take the MDI and they understand is that they thought so much of what's important is beyond the product and service itself, that you can't just do great design with having clever people sitting in a room doing it. You actually have to develop infrastructure and mindsets such that you can do it. And so I think that's quite often the takeaway is it's not the thing that you need to improve is not the product or service, it's the infrastructure to make it possible.
Yes, and also in a related question, let me direct this at Jeff. So we have some questions about how design is different than agile, lean, and all the other methods that you hear very often from. about and are often used in the digital space. So if you could share a little bit about your views into that.
Well, obviously all these things can work together and are somewhat interrelated, at least the way I think about it. I mean, design can involve many things, but fundamentally, as I tried to say before, to me, design thinking and a design approach is it's bottom up, and it starts with the customer and works backwards to ensure that all of your products and services and your organization are aimed at serving the customer and the customer's fundamental needs. And just to make it clear what I mean and how that's different from maybe other ways companies work, I think we've all worked with or inside organizations where actually the way they tend to start is with the products and services they have. I think most organizations, naturally, there's this organizational inertia to where you start to be very internally focused on, okay, what product do I have? How can I push this more? How can I sell it more? How can I take this to a new market? And okay, we've already built it in, I'm making it up, in Japan, let's take it to Singapore. The design thinking approach, I think, is more of a methodology, it's a mindset. It's a forcing mechanism to make sure you're always understanding your customers and working back from them to build your organization and kind of serve them. Now, there's all sorts of other ways. To me, consulting is just an umbrella kind of topic of advising companies on how to do a better job at whatever they do. It could involve design thinking. Agile, to me, is about, self-organizing cross-functional teams, delivering typically technology and products. That can go hand in hand with design thinking, because obviously you can start with the understanding of the customer and what you want to build. You're then using an agile design methodology, agile development methodology to then deliver it. So all these things come together, and whenever you see a large transformation or a new business build, you use a bunch of tools to put it together. So there's not really any contradiction, at least in my mind.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So essentially, businesses can use all of these methods, and it's really about which one is the most suitable for their particular needs, and of course, the specific products and services that they're trying to deliver.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think Adrian has just joined us on the panel. So thanks for joining us, Adrian.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, Wei.
Hi. Yeah, we were just discussing a little bit about design and agile and lean methods. So these, I suppose, are some of the terms that you'll be familiar with. Since you've just joined us on the panel, perhaps if you can share a little bit about how design is applicable to your business and your experience of it, essentially.
Sure. I think we've started 11 years ago, and I think design, came from a physical standpoint, I guess, 7 years ago when we redesigned our stores. But more recently, I think really came from a culture, mindset, the way we operate, the way we lead projects. So I think it's now just so much more multifaceted. And I think, it's something that is sort of ingrained in the culture. And we still have a long way to go, especially as this sort of project highlighted. But I think it's part of the journey. It's part of, putting your customer first, part of making sure that that it's again, it's just integrated in every part of your business.
Thanks. So I'm sure that Salad Stop has also been heavily impacted by COVID. And I think we've learned a little bit about some of the experiments that you've been running in terms of how to try out some new business models, etc. Could you share a little bit about some of these experiments and also how perhaps design behaviors has helped you in those regard?
Sure. So, I think historically, and sort of pre-COVID, a lot of our business was brick and mortar. We relied obviously a lot of the office clusters, CBD, people just coming down from their office buildings and just walking straight into our stores. So we didn't have to do that much digital marketing. We didn't, we had some online business, but that was more based on our own sort of company direction, where we're investing a lot into technology and things like that. But COVID really accelerated it tremendously, and where we are today is 50% of our business is online.
we've had to really raise the bar on our online experience. I think so. That's from a design experience standpoint. That's really what we focused on. Is how do we match the experience in store to what someone would have online, and that's been the biggest pivot for us. If it meant how do we reach out to customers now working from home? How do we get them to click on an ad that we're pushing out? So I think it's been fascinating to see how we've sort of had to transform both online and offline, and how we've even launched new e-commerce channels, how we've launched our first combined cloud kitchen. So that was a first as well that we started in August. So yeah, we've tried a lot of new things, learned a lot this year, and again, always trying to put the customer first and trying to think of what that experience would be like online and offline.
Thanks, Adrian. My apologies, I'm going to quiz you a little bit here because there are a lot of questions from Q&A. They're really interested in what SaladStop does. So we have an additional question here. So this is from a fan of SaladStop, I have to add. So he's sharing here that the end user experience varies from outlet to outlet. And what he's curious is that how do you ensure that some of your initiatives and processes get transferred down the line from management to the frontliners, and of course across brands and across branches?
Very good question, and I think that's sometimes I think you do it from a just daily operational level. So getting feedback from the stores. Just coming out of this program, just one small thing that we added to our weekly district manager updates is just one column that actually prompts the outlet manager to give us some feedback on what they've experienced from a design experience standpoint throughout the week. So if it's that our ordering app wasn't working, or a delivery customer couldn't find the pickup counter, just simple things that they observe on the ground, we want more of that feedback. So that's on a daily basis. Then obviously we take on larger projects, and that could mean let's say payment gateway integration, which allows us to make the whole payment process a lot more frictionless. So those sort of initiatives will be some that we would drive from the corporate office, and then get feedback from the team. And then obviously the even greater ones where we look at a complete redesign, and that's where one store might be built slightly differently than another one, because of certain things that we've learned, and then we just kind of upgrade those stores as they come along. So it's a process, and there are sometimes areas where there's a disconnect, but I think where we try to at least do more of the A/B testing, and that's the beauty of, I guess, having a greater online presence, is that we can be a lot more nimble. And we can be a lot more consistent as well. So I think that merging the online-offline space is also going to be a challenge, but that's where now at least what we're learning online feeds into everything else that we do offline as well.
Thanks, Adrian, for that sharing. Yeah, of course, this especially now in the time of COVID, merging online and offline experiences is really important. And I believe this is something that customers want to see as well, being able to interact with a brand across all touch points and across all channels. So we've come to the end of the Q&A. We're running a little bit out of time. So I'm just going to end this with a really interesting question from Micah here. And I wanted to get some quick reactions from across the panel. So very simple question. Is change both positive and negative? Perhaps some views from you. Let's start with DY, perhaps.
Embrace it, embrace change, and therefore it is both a positive force, and they will have negative connotations because it will force us to have to change, and that in itself is a good thing.
Yeah, I concur with DY. Get used to it because everyone's changing. If you don't, you'll be left behind.
I was just going to add that I think change is good. When changes happen, you learn, right?
Adrian or Jeff, perhaps just a quick reaction to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, COVID has taught us that clearly, and I think especially, you know, this program in particular, I think is about, you know, that mindset shift and giving companies a framework to be able to change and to be able to look internally and reevaluate things. And I think we just from doing this for 2 weeks benefited tremendously.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. Change is inevitable. It kind of accelerates and decelerates, but it's going to keep happening. And I think if you look to go back to the question about design thinking and agile and just digital trends in general, if you look at some of the biggest changes in the way people work, it's all about having your finger on the pulse of customers all the time, so that you understand as soon as customers are changing their behavior, as soon as trends are coming, you understand it. And then equally importantly, you can make the changes. You have an agile organization, both capital and lowercase a, an agile organization that can move very quickly to respond to the changes. And if you just look at who's been more successful in the last, 10, 20 years, it is tended to be organizations that understand their customers and can respond to them very quickly. That's just been the biggest trend I've seen across industries.
Thanks, Jeff, for that. I love this capital A and also the lowercase a. So these are really important lessons that all organizations must learn, right? Being able to be nimble, especially in this time of uncertainty. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for your sharing. I'll close the Q&A session right now. And then also to the audience, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that this has been an insightful and inspiring session for you. We've had many questions in the Q&A, so we haven't been able to cover them all, but we will cover them in the post-event email, so please look out for that. So if you wish to revisit any of the presentations, the recording of this session will be made available. And of course, to join the Business Value of Design program, we will send in a link in the chat. But in any case, you can always reach out to us, innovation@designsingapore.org, if you have any further questions. So let's see, we should be pulling up a QR code. There, here comes the link. So you can sign up for the program at this link in the chat. It's just a really quick online form, and then it will just gather some information about your organization. And then we will follow up with you to get you on board the program. So we will also love your feedback on this webinar. Please let us know what you think, and we'll be putting up a poll to get your feedback on this. All right. For those of you for whom this might work a little bit easier, we've put up a QR code, so that this is the link to the sign up form. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been a pleasure hosting this webinar today. With that, keep well, stay safe, have a great day ahead. Bye everyone.